We've all heard the saying, there are 1,000 Hamlets in 1,000 readers' eyes. Today, we're discussing the book, Hamlet. Penned in 1599, it stands as Shakespeare's longest play and is renowned as one of his 4 great tragedies, alongside Othello, King Lear, and Macbeth. Undoubtedly, among these 4 tragedies, Hamlet stands out as the most beloved by audiences and readers alike. It's also one of the most adapted stories in cinema, second only to Cinderella. Hamlet has been translated under various titles, with some of the more familiar ones being The Prince's Revenge, Hamlet, and Hamlete. The story follows Prince Hamlet of Denmark, who discovers that his uncle Claudius murdered his father, usurped the throne, and married Hamlet's mother, Gertrude. Hamlet vows to avenge his father's death. Today, let's dive into the Hamlet you've probably heard of, but may not have read. Every story has a code, a key that unlocks its essence. To really understand Hamlet, you need to find that key. In my view, the key is encapsulated in the word fate. How does fate work? Is there such a thing as destiny? Can people defy their fate? Today, we'll explore these questions as we delve into our reading. So, who is Hamlet? He's the Prince of Denmark, the direct heir to the throne. From the moment of his birth, he had everything many people dream of: a great honor, royal favor, and the shelter of his country and parents. He could do anything he wanted. Consequently, Hamlet's life unfolded effortlessly. He studied in Wittenberg, made interesting friends, traveled, and engaged in a romantic relationship with the woman he loved. At the beginning of the story, Hamlet learns by chance about his father's death while studying in Germany. He rushes back to the palace to pay his last respects. But when he arrives, he finds that his uncle has seized the throne and swiftly wed his mother, who only a month after becoming a widow, has remarried. The throne he once envisioned as his own is now beyond his grasp. Let's untangle the relationships. Hamlet's father, Old Hamlet, was the former king. Hamlet's uncle, Claudius, is the new king. Hamlet's mother, Gertrude, was the former queen of Denmark and is now the current queen. The country, the crown, and the queen remain the same, but the person holding all of it has changed, from Hamlet's father to his uncle. Hamlet, who is set to inherit the throne, now finds himself in a very awkward position. He is shocked and cannot accept what has happened. Shakespeare famously writes in the original text, "Frailty, thy name is woman." Within a month ago, she, referring to his mother, was, even before she had broken in the shoes she wore to his funeral, crying like crazy. Even an animal would have mourned its mate longer than she did. There she was marrying my uncle, my father's brother, who's about as much like my father as I'm like Hercules. Less than a month after my father's death, even before the tears on her cheeks had dried, she remarried. Oh, so quick to jump into a bed of incest. That's not good, and no good can come of it either. But my heart must break in silence since I can't mention my feelings aloud. This is a classic Shakespearean long sentence. You can sense this style in the book Palace of Desire, which we discussed earlier. We've also experienced this kind of elaborate language in Shakespeare's other work, Romeo and Juliet. Hamlet cannot come to terms with his mother's actions. He believes that her marriage is incestuous and that it will not end well. As for this surprising union, Hamlet's uncle, the reigning King Claudius, says, "Though my memories of my brother Hamlet are still fresh, and though it was proper for me and our entire kingdom to grieve for him, life doesn't stop. And so, while we must remember to mourn for him, it is also wise to remember our happiness. Therefore, with sad joy, with one I marry and the other crying, with laughter at a funeral and grieving at a wedding, with equal measures of happiness and sadness. I have married my former sister-in-law, who inherited some right of her own to rule this nation, and made her my queen." In Act 1, Scene 2 of the play, after Claudius delivers his speech and deems his explanation sufficient, he moves on to discuss state affairs with his courtiers. Meanwhile, Hamlet, an observer of the wedding, sums up his feelings about the situation. He feels that everything around him has changed: extraordinarily close relatives, indifferent strangers. This is the state Hamlet finds himself in. From being a prince in the limelight with everything going smoothly, he suddenly becomes melancholic and is often consumed by thoughts of suicide. This shift is entirely reasonable given the circumstances. With his strong and vigorous uncle seizing the throne, the prince, momentarily pushed aside and unable to ascend to kingship, feels deeply disheartened. Adding to his distress, his mother's insatiable desires drive her into a hasty remarriage, indulging in unrestrained pleasure with his uncle. This makes him extremely angry. Isn't this scene quite dramatic? Absolutely yes, and the dramatic tension it creates has inspired many works. For example, director Feng Xiaojiang's film The Banquet is essentially a retelling of the Hamlet story. As we continue, we'll uncover numerous classic scenes and emotional depths within this tale. As a prince, Hamlet's attitude toward fate is far from consistent. It fluctuates and at times contradicts itself. He is a deeply conflicted individual, and the upheavals in his family lead him to doubt human nature. In his anger and despair, he comes to believe that fate is capricious. It doesn't favor the virtuous nor condemn the wicked, instead bringing calamity upon those in positions of power. This is a classic example of blaming fate. Hamlet is so consumed by negative emotions that he begins to reject his own country, Denmark. He sees the world as a vast prison with many cells, dungeons, and jails, with Denmark being the worst of them all. To him, everything in Denmark is loathsome, stale, and tedious, like a neglected garden overrun with poisonous weeds. His uncle, the newly crowned King Claudius, is very suspicious of Hamlet. He distrusts him and feels that Hamlet's presence makes him unsafe. Claudius doesn't want Hamlet to return to Germany to continue his studies. Instead, he wants him close by so he can keep a close watch on him. As a result, Hamlet finds himself trapped in Denmark, which he sees as a prison with no escape. Externally, Hamlet is still revered and remains the heir to the throne, but everyone around him, including Hamlet himself, knows that he is in constant danger of losing his life and having nothing left. At this point, his friend Horatio reveals to him something crucial: the truth about his father's death. This revelation sets Hamlet on the path of revenge. Before this, Hamlet was merely wallowing in complaints, pessimism, and despondency, lacking the fervent desire for retribution. So, what did Horatio tell him? He revealed a very mysterious secret. In the dead of night, during his watch duty, he saw a figure in armor for 2 consecutive nights. Hamlet, a figure like your father appeared before us. He strode past with a dignified, unhurried pace, passing by us thrice. His staff almost brushed against us. His staff nearly grazed us, inducing such terror that we were nearly immobilized, rooted in place, unable to utter a word to him. This was the ghost of the former king. The ghost appeared to Hamlet and revealed that he had come to tell him an important truth, the secret of the old king's death. Here's how it's written. Now, Hamlet, listen. The official story is that a poisonous snake bit me while I was sleeping in the orchard. That is a lie that deceives all of Denmark. You noble youth, know that the snake that killed your father is now wearing his crown. Hamlet said, "Oh, my far-seeing soul, my uncle." Yes, that incestuous, adulterous beast. With his evil wit and traitorous gifts, a wicked wit and gifts that have the power to seduce, he convinced my seemingly virtuous queen to give in to his lust. Oh, Hamlet, she fell so far from me, who loved her with the dignity that goes hand in hand with my marriage vows, to a wretch whose natural abilities could not compare to mine. But wait, I think I smell the morning air. I must speak quickly. As I was sleeping in the orchard, as I used to do every afternoon, your uncle snuck up and poured a vial of henbane poison into my ear. That poison, which is like a natural enemy of blood, spreads like quicksilver through the veins and curdles the blood. So, it did to mine. I broke instantly into a rash that covered my smooth body with a revolting crust. And so, as I slept, my brother stole my life, my crown, and my queen. If you have any natural feelings of a son for a father in you, don't let this stand. Don't let the bed of the Danish king be a nest of incest. However, if you attempt to get revenge, don't allow your mind or soul to contemplate harming your mother. Leave her fate to God and the sting of her guilt. Goodbye now. The glow of light on the horizon shows that morning is near. Goodbye, goodbye. Hamlet, remember me. This is what the ghost of the old king tells him. He reveals the true cause of his death, exposes his brother's treachery, and shares his anger and forgiveness towards his wife. But the ghost demands that Hamlet kill Claudius to avenge him and set things right in the kingdom of Denmark. That's what the ghost requires. So, what's going on in Hamlet's head? He says to himself, "A ghost talking is already quite bizarre. Should I believe it?" This is where Hamlet's indecisiveness comes to the fore. Shakespeare sets the ghost's appearance as the trigger for all the drama. Hamlet becomes Hamlet because of this ghost. It tells him a secret, pushes him to seek the truth, ignites his desire for revenge, upholds justice, and changes the status quo. He's given a mission and must live on. This moment marks the start of Hamlet's transformation, beginning with courage.